Hey, what's going on, guys? So, if you've been watching my channel recently, this is kind of like part 3 of a 3-parter that I've been working on, where I've been talking about like growing up and what kind of games you played. I started out with part 1 was what was the first video game you ever played, and that's specifically like not a game that was specifically bought for you or you bought yourself, but just the first game you ever played. Was it in the arcade? Was it your older brothers or sisters? Were you at a cousin's house? Was it your parents maybe? They liked games growing up. For me, it was my older stepsister's regular Nintendo, and it was Mario Brothers 3. And then the next question I had was, what was the first game that was yours? Now, that one had a little bit of different kind of, air to it, because that was a game that was either bought for you or you bought it yourself, but either way it was meant for you. It wasn't someone else's, and because of that, that makes a big difference, right? So for me, that was Donkey Kong Country, and I talked about that and some of my experiences, and it's been awesome because you guys down below have been telling me your experiences, your first game that was owned for you. And like I said, all this was kind of a build up because I have a question that is a legitimate question. Like, this isn't just like a, hey, what's your game you grew up with? Like, let's get some views on that. Like, this is a legitimate question I have for you guys, especially a certain part of my audience. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Now, if you are a friend of mine, like outside of the YouTube world, like if you know me personally, you probably already know this. But if not, then, a minor announcement that, now that I'm thinking about it, may or may not affect the channel. It might. But I'm going to be a dad. In fact, I'm going to be a dad. If you're watching this video on the time of release, I'm going to be a dad in like somewhere in the next weeks. Currently we are, very close to the due date. It's the middle of May is the due date, but realistically, my son can be born anytime now, and it's in the safe window. So yeah, I'm gonna have a little boy, and it's gonna be really cool, and I'm really excited for this part of my life. And that's actually why I've been asking these questions. I wanted to know, most people who watch my channels are around the same age as me, in their 30s. So, kids of the 90s. So a lot of the responses I got were, the first game you ever played was maybe NES or Atari, and the first game you ever owned was maybe NES or Super Nintendo. For me, it was NES and then Super Nintendo. Some people are older and their first stuff was PlayStation, or I've even had some people like Xbox 360. So I got a wide variety of people watching my stuff. But I really wanted to know kind of like what your experiences were. For me, it was platformers and muscle memory and learning that kind of stuff. And the age I was maybe around, 4 to 5, 5 to 6. And so this is the kind of question I wanted to ask you guys, because I'm a little bit late in the game of parenthood. Not, like really, but I mean, I know a lot of people who already have kids, or maybe have had kids like a year or two ago. And that's the question I want to ask for you guys. In 2024, what is the best time to start your kids on video games? 1. And then part 2, and this will probably change by the time my son's old enough to play video games, but like, what is a good place to start with video games? Like, I know there's little kid video games that are geared towards them, maybe learning or etc., etc. But I mean, in general, there's different philosophies out there, right? I mean, like, do I want them to have the same experience I had for nostalgic sake, where it's like, hey, you're going to start on Mario? Or, does it make more sense to jump into something more modern that's meant for kids? I remember when I was in like high school, early college, you walk around Walmart and you see like those like Leapfrog tablet things are like meant for kids. And now like the Nintendo Switch has like a whole bevy of games. They're like meant for developing minds. So, I mean, the general question, like I said, is when's a good time to start them? I really do need to know that. And what's a good place to start them? I don't want to do anything crazy and give a kid who's too young, something that's outrageous, or even when they're old enough to play. Like, some parts of Mario were a little hard for me when I was that age. But I mean, I know a very popular cartoon with some of the some of my friends who have younger children is like that dog Bluey, and I know Bluey just got a game recently. So like I said, that's the general question I have, because so many things have changed, right? It's not as simple as all games are for kids, even though like that was never the case. It's just what people have said. It's like saying that all anime is cartoons. There's some violent anime out there. I'm just saying. But for those of you who have kids, once again, let me know down below. That is the main question, the main point of this video. What's a good time to start them? Where's a good place to start them? And then, this is the rest of this video is going to be kind of me going off the cuff without knowing your guys' sage advice, which I am going to definitely take, within reason. And if there's something crazy like, yeah, man, throw them on Mortal Kombat, probably not. But, my kind of battle plan as it is right now is, I obviously I play a lot of video games, and I'm going to keep playing a lot of video games. I know that when I'm around my soon-to-be son now, I'm not going to play certain games around them, of course. Like, I'm not going to pop on to, Doom or something like that, to a small child. And, depending on the game, like, maybe if it's a nice RPG with, like, good music or something, maybe I'll have them in there, during a resting time. But I think when it comes to starting games, I think I'm going to have him kind of sit next to me while I play certain things, certain kid-friendly, bright, fun, Banjo-Kazooie, something like that. And then when they're old enough, maybe branch into more child, focused games, maybe that Bluey game I talked about, or whatever the hot kid thing is at the time, and kind of start there and see where that goes. But I do want to incorporate some of the stuff that I grew up with, not just like purely out of nostalgia and like, you need to be like old dad, but like I think a lot of those games, I think there's a lot of merit in hand-eye coordination. I mean, there's like a classic example of like Mario 1. At the end of Mario 1, right, there's the staircase where you climb up the stairs and then jump to the flagpole. And as you go further down the game, there'll be more gaps in the stairs. It's essentially the same exact thing, though. You're still jumping up the stairs to the flagpole, but now there's gaps, and those gaps get, bigger and bigger and bigger until it's just like one block. And it's funny because there's been studies on this where it's essentially the same exact task. Nothing is harder than what was before, but your brain thinks it's a big challenge and then you slip up and fall in the hole or whatever. So it's really interesting. So I think stuff like that will build hand-eye coordination. And like I said, I know at this point there's gonna be a lot of games that are geared towards learning, or at least geared towards getting into video games. I know obviously like you don't want a little kid playing Call of Duty, but like, there's Splatoon, so like you can kind of get used to walking with one joystick and looking with the other. So I'll tell you what, my first-person shooter I ever played was Halo 1 on the Xbox, and I had to have been like in middle school at the time, and that was crazy to me. Like the idea of moving with one and looking with the other, like it fried my brain. Like I had like no concept. And I already know that obviously the world is way different than when I was a kid. My initial first thoughts when I was, serving tables back in college and people were giving their smartphones to their kids to shut them up, as I was like, man, I'm never going to be that parent. Like, this kid is going to, learn to behave and be right. And I still feel that way greatly, but I also know that nowadays, if you don't introduce them to technology, they're going to be way behind the curve. So it's like a balancing act, right? So I'm already kind of, it's funny, right? I'm thinking of all this stuff. Literally, this kid's going to be a newborn. Like, this isn't stuff I need to worry about for a while, but I'm going to start thinking now. So anyway, I've really gone off on a tangent here. The long story short, that's kind of my loose plan for video games, because I really want to enjoy stuff I enjoy with my son. And I will say this, for all I know, my kid may not like video games at all, and that is also fine, because everyone is their own person, and I just want to be there for them. But if I'm lucky enough for where my kid enjoys video games, then I definitely want to give him the best experience I can. I think that starts with a good foundation, not being frustrated, not giving up, which means that I need a certain quality of game. And like I said, that's where I really want you guys to come in. So thank you if you've watched this far. Really, like, I know usually I say, hey, thanks for leaving a comment or whatever. Like, really this time, like, please leave me a comment, especially if you are a parent, or like a aunt or uncle who has a lot of experience with younger kids, who has done this. That'd be super cool for me. Like I said, I didn't even think about the fact that I might this might affect the channel. You know, I have been sticking with my one video a week every week since its inception, at minimum one video, sometimes more. I'll let you guys know if it's going to be a problem. Hopefully not. I mean, I can squeak out a video pretty quick. But anyway, I digress. Let me know in the comments down below. Really looking forward to this new adventure. My wife and I both are. You know, it should be the middle of May, or sooner, or later. I mean, you never, you know, there's a window. But the due date's middle of May. But yeah, I look forward to seeing your guys' comments down below. And hey, that's going to do it for me today, guys. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys say down below. But as always, my friends, take it easy.